there's no way I can type and talk without like a standy desk thing. So this presentation is intended to be the beginner-friendly presentation, and like 90% of you are computer experts, so I'm a little bit apprehensive here, but my hope is that even you computer geniuses will be able to get something out of this. So, what is even going on? So why would you even bother with the terminal program in 2019 now that we have like X windows and graphics and stuff? Well, maybe your computer is like my computer, which I got from computer recycling and was already like 6 years old when I got it, and it's too slow for the modern internet. Like, I can't use LinkedIn, I can't use Slack. That might be a blessing, but sometimes you have to use these things. And sometimes you have to do things on the internet. Maybe I can do some of them on this old and slow computer. Maybe you have a tiling window manager. So a tiling window manager, of course, breaks up your screen so you can never see a background, so you can't see my beautiful wallpaper. And it can just split and split and split, and then supposedly you can be super productive. But in my case, I have my little tiny screen, and so I can actually use most of my little tiny screen. Maybe you want to get work done in an SSH window, so you only have PuTTY or some terrible system that can't run graphical applications in Unix, and you want to SSH in and you want to actually do stuff. Well, maybe then you need a terminal program. Maybe you hate notifications. So this is actually a big one for me. Anytime I actually try to use the modern internet, there's all of these modal pop-ups and like sign up for my newsletter, and you have 3 free articles left, and that all sucks. And Slack, it wants to pop up things all the time and like say, hey, I sent you a message, and I hate all of that and it distracts me. So using a terminal can sometimes help with that a little bit. And maybe you are a dinosaur. I'm a dinosaur. Apparently I'm from the 1970s, and I use terminal programs like they're from the 1970s. So you can be a dinosaur too. Here's my goals. So, if you are a new user, and I don't know how many people are relatively new to the command line. Is there anybody here who feels like they're relatively new? Nobody, half a person. Half a person is relatively new. So my goal is show you some of the things that I use on a day-to-day basis and give you some nouns to search for. What I'm not going to be doing, unless you guys want me to, is go through, here are all the keystrokes that you press in this application, because that will get kind of gross. But I can give you an overview, like if you're like, how did you do that? Then I can tell you how I did that. All of you experienced users, maybe you'll get 1 or 2 tips for things that you did not see before, so that you can be even better nerds. And also maybe I can show you some of the quirks. And for me, I don't do everything optimally, so maybe you'll give me some suggestions, or you'll give me some improvements. You'll probably tell me that I type terribly. A, this keyboard's not so good, and B, I'm not such a good typist. I remember the last time I presented, or 2 times ago, Gord Day was like cringing because my Vim skills were so terrible. So you might do that too. Caveats. I run old Debian. I was like, I am going to run Debian 8 until Debian 10 comes out, and then I'll upgrade. And then it came out this weekend and I didn't upgrade. Oh well. I'm no computer genius, and I'm also not like a life hacker, so a bunch of these things are not really optimal. They're just good enough for me to get by. Tim.
Quick show of hands, who here has taught professionally computer science?
Who here has taught professionally computer science?
Okay, I think anybody who has professionally taught computer science gets to call themselves a computer genius.
Anybody who's taught themselves compuder science can call themselves a computer genius?
Taught others computer
Taught
science.
others? Apparently you've never gone into computer science class.
You're selling yourself short, man.
Okay, these are the programs I actually use. There's a bunch of programs I ought to use, and I don't use all the ones I ought to. So this was supposed to be the easiest presentation I could give, because it's actually just what I use every day. And so there may be better things. I'm happy to hear about the better things. I probably will not demonstrate all those better things now. And the last caveat is actually really important. Muscle memory is a walled garden. So one of the problems I've learned, and one of the reasons I don't use some of the better things I ought to in Emacs, is because my fingers know how to type things, and once you get into that habit on the terminal, then you don't unlearn it. So I'm kind of stuck with some of these things forever. If you start using some of these things, maybe your muscle memory will lead you astray as well. Okay, oops, I did not bother preparing more slides, so maybe the presentation's over. What do I do now? So, I don't know, let's improvise. I will try and take some notes as we go along, and this will probably be a giant disaster, but my goal is to kind of demonstrate sort of some different groups of terminal applications that I use. I'm going to probably skip over the ones that everybody already knows about. We'll discuss them in much detail, but then hopefully focus on a few of the things that might be more obscure. So let's talk about the basics. So the first basic is a tiling window manager, which is not necessary, but is what I'm using in this case. And I'm using something called Spectre WM. There's a bunch of them. I didn't want to download like 200 megs of Haskell dependencies, so I used this one. It's written in C. It's fine. You know, it allows you to do the basic things. I can open up new windows. You know, I can launch programs, right, like XPDF, and then it'll open them up in the new window. It gives me different ways to organize my stuff. It's got hotkeys so that my fat fingers can actually get to them. I can switch my different workspaces pretty easily. So that's a pretty good one. It's pretty lightweight. It's got some configurability, although not a lot. One of the things I can configure is which key I use as my special key, and so I use my Windows key because I love Windows. Another thing is a multiplexer, which is just a fancy way of saying GNU screen. So all that allows me to do is that allows me to open up many screens at once, so that instead of using a bunch of terminal tabs, I can just easily access them all in a list.
How do you get to the list in the screen?
So how do I get to the list in GNU screen? It's Control A and then double quotation mark.
Oh, nice.
The other thing is I have a bunch of shortcut things with my GNU screen so that you can actually like, oh look, I'm actually in this terminal life folder. And if I go to the bin, if I go to my bin folder, it actually shows me that I'm in my bin folder. If I like try to edit a thing, so let's edit my work computer, then it will actually show me that I'm editing a file there. So that's kind of nice. That's a bunch of custom configuration to set the screen titles. You have to edit your .bashrc, and I put a bunch of stuff in my bin directory. So this is an example actually. I'm running some command, but then there's a thingy here to set the screen title. So that's how it sets that, so that it shows up in this list. Without that, screen is useless to me. It's absolutely useless. And if you want to know about that stuff, well, I presented about it like 10 years ago, and it's all exactly the same because I'm a dinosaur. So KWLUG.org, node 687 is where you go if you want all of that configuration for setting screen titles and all of that stuff.
What keys did you use at Spectrum?
What key do I use for Spectrum?
Yeah, before you showed the...
Yeah, so I just used, I mapped the Windows key on my keyboard. And let's see, is it like Spectrum, oops, this is not good. I don't remember where this,
Under .conf, perhaps?
yeah, maybe, I don't know. Oh, sorry, less.spectrum.conf, there. So this is where I said, oh, here's my mod key, mod 4, and then I come up with some initial layouts, and it says here's some mappings to say, open up terminal emulators, run Iceweasel in window 2, change my bar font. So there's things that you can set. Nothing's very exciting, but basically you have this, and then you have a bunch of built-in shortcuts to like move things around, right?
So you can actually tell it to open up apps like on boot.
Yeah, you can tell it to open up apps on boot, and that's what I do. So I open up an Iceweasel and I open up a few terminal windows, right?
So it doesn't have like default keys for, let's say, you start using without mapping keys and stuff.
If it does have default keys,
Oh.
and most of the shortcuts are defaults, the only thing that I really changed was the mod key.
Oh.
To say, what key do you press when you're actually talking Spectrum, right? So the multiplexer, you need an X-terminal emulator.
Oh,
Yep.
question about the screen.
Mhm.
Is Bash the main shell?
Is Bash my main shell? Bash is my main shell.
So how do you, like, Control-8 on the screen to move to the beginning of the line in Bash.
Oh, how do you go to the beginning of the line in Bash?
Yeah.
Okay, so here is something. Oh no, I got to go to the beginning. I just go Control A.
So you do 8 twice.
Yeah, and then it takes me to the beginning. Yeah. Did I see it?
For the end work, or you have to do
What?
Control A? How do you go to the end of the line then?
I don't know. I've never gone to the end of the line.
So it's usually Control
How
E.
do I go? So let's go to the A. Control A E. No, Control E. Okay, it's just Control
Oh,
E.
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There's a home and end, but they also work.
I don't
Yeah,
have-
there are homes and ends, and they also work, and I don't even know where they are on this keyboard. I think I have to press like a function key or something like that. I'm telling you, not a computer genius. Yeah, and then for an Xterminal emulator, I don't care what you use. You can use Xterm, or you can use something fancier. I don't mind Xterm, so that's what I'm using. I'm sure there's much better ones out there. I can get transparency so I can see my beautiful desktop background. And then the last thing, I guess, is like an editor. Let's not get into editor wars. We'll just accept that we'll use Vim. I don't care. Use Emacs. You take your risks and want RSI. Use Emacs. You hate computers. Use Nano. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But you need something. Yo.
Did you give us a little like 5 minutes, like how do you use it? Because sometimes I get I even cannot turn it off normally.
Yeah,
So, the most important thing in Vim, the escape key. You press escape a bunch of times, and then you press Control, or you press colon X, and you get out.
Okay, a bunch of times.
Exclamation
Or-
point if you want to delete your work.
Or colon Q, and then you get out.
So escape sort of brings you at this bottom line, which is like your sort of
Yeah.
menu thing.
So the idea behind Vim is that it's a modal editor, so there's some modes for entering texts, there's some modes for moving around. And so your goal is to get into a mode where you enter commands, and that you get to, or I get to because I'm dumb, is I just go escape as many times as I can, and then I just get out. Or I do whatever command I want, right? Whenever I'm confused in Vim.
Vim is suffering from what's called organic growth. Back in the day, you had a printer in front of you,
Yeah.
and you had a keyboard, and all you entered in was commands. So go to line 3 and do this thing. And you could see line 3 because you could just go through your printout. Oh, there's line 3.
Yeah.
And at some point, it said, let's add a screen. It's like, yeah, but let's keep all the same commands. And thus, everybody has been screwed for the last 30 years.
So Tim says that everybody's been screwed. So here's the problem with me and Vim. The problem with me and Vim is that I'm very bad with Vim, but I'm still way better in Vim than I am in any other terminal editor.
Yeah.
So I just find myself dying when I do not have something like Vim available. Okay. Yep.
Can you edit a file in the Vim?
Can you edit a file in?
In Vim, like open a file in Vim and like say move from line to line, remove something,
Yeah.
write something, and then save the file.
So I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
This is
Okay.
Vim.
What do you use? Like do you use arrows?
I use my arrow keys. I'm not, like you're supposed to use like JKL or something like that, but I'm dumb. I put there's a way to put line numbers on, so that's to set the line numbers, and so I use line numbers extensively. So I'll say like go to line 167, and it'll go to line 167.
What about just editing? Like you type.
To edit something, then what I do is you go into edit mode, and so there's a bunch of ways to do that. So I go and then I can type, and then I press escape.
Insert. It means
Yeah.
mode for insertion of the text.
Yeah, you only really need I, and you need capital R, and capital R is replaced. There's a bunch of other
They are
ones.
different.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about Vim. Somebody should give a talk in August about how to use Vim.
I could do that.
Oh.
I'm a Vim expert.
Okay, Jason
Yeah.
will come next month, and Jason will teach you how to use
Because you
Vim.
see sometimes it opens up in the Vim and it's like,
Yep, it can be
gosh,
confusing.
should I-
Hadoop? Can we have somebody do Hadoop? I want to see an install of Hadoop.
Of what?
Hadoop.
Hadoop?
Hadoop. Yeah, it's really hard to say loud.
Hadoop?
That's one. Yeah.
Is that a terminal?
No.
It's
Okay.
even harder to do in 3 hours.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No,
May I
it's
move
like-
on? Yep.
What if you start, you plug your administrative container to somewhere and it only has Vim? You know that?
What if you only have Vim?
Yes.
PI.
Then you learn enough Vim to get by,
Yes, yes.
which is basically how I learned Vim.
And that's the
How I learned
reason
how to
what
type.
we need this tool school, because
Yeah.
now we're gonna use the stuff like you plug, you are talking from the container.
Yep. So you go into a container, you only have terminal tools.
Yeah.
These are some terminal tools.
I'm
Yeah.
sure somebody is trying to figure out how to install VS Code in
I'm
containers.
sure they have. Shall we talk about internets? So how do I get on the internets in this thing? Well, the first thing is to actually like join a network. I use WCD curses. So WCD is a network manager. Curses, it has a bunch of interfaces, including a graphical one. The WCD curses interface you may have seen already, and then this allows me to like get in and choose a network, and then I can go here, and then I can see my key. Oh no, it's open Wi-Fi, and whatever. It's good enough to actually join networks, and that's all I care about. And it means that I don't have like there's some command line, pure command line interface to join networks, and just no. How do you surf the internets? Surf the internets. Well, there's a bunch of text mode browsers. The one that I use is W3M. So W3M is a text mode browser. It's got no JavaScript, which is good and bad. It means that you don't get all the modal pop-ups, but then there's a bunch of sites, and increasingly sites that say, no, you can't. You look at the meetup events unless you have JavaScript enabled. You suck, right? The other thing about W3M is I like to use private browsing. Cookies are a little bit sketchy in the sense that it will remember more cookies than you want. So you have to be careful because Google is tracking your W3M usage everywhere you go, right? So you can kind of go to KWLUG.org, and then you can kind of go, oh, I should probably change this color. Change that to blue. Good, now you can see the links. And then, so this is what the KWLUG site looks like. It looks okay. Many times I find, especially when I'm looking for technical documentation, I can find enough text to actually read what's going on. And then if that doesn't work, and oh no, this is a terrible site, well, I can configure it so, I have it configured so that I have a backup browser, and then if you press M, then what will happen is, it should then show up in your graphical browser. That's going to slow your computer down, right? So that's my usual workflow. I just open up a real browser if I can't see things. Why would I even want to try and see things here? Well, because I like to search the internets, and I'm trying to be cool and JavaScript. So if you want to search, then I'm using DuckDuckGo with a shortcut. And so my shortcut is like how to give boring presentations. And then what it does is it opens up how to give boring presentations in DuckDuckGo. What is this D? Well, this D is just a little shell script in my... So if I go to bin and I go D, and then what it does is it again does this thing with setting the screen title, but basically all you can see is that it runs W3M to the DuckDuckGo site, and it sets a little query string. And this I use all the time, right? When I'm looking for things, oh, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? I'm doing this all the time. It'll open it up. So here's my thing, how to give boring presentations. And then I can look at this, and then I think, oh, I need to look at something else. So then I open up another D, and then open up another D, right?
So with W3M, what's the thing that defines your hotkey to go to the regular browser?
What's the thing that defines my hotkey? So if you open up O in W3M, then there's all of the settings, and one of the settings here is your alternative browser. I don't even know where it is. I'm sure. Right, but there is a thing here.
External browser.
Yeah, there's an external browser thing. Did I skip it?
Passed it.
Right.
About
Anyways.
2 pages ago.
Sure.
It's fine.
But it's there. You can find it. You only have to set it once, and then it remembers it, and then that's great. Right? So then here, set a browser with O and use another browser with M. And like, I actually do this in real life. I use search and I surf the internet, especially for simple things like my blogs. Other things on the internet, read news. I use Newsbuter, which now is called Newsboat. It was forked to a thing called Newsboat, but I'm still using Newsbuter. And basically what this is an RSS reader. So the default way that I try to get news is I turn everything into RSS, and then I read it that way. And then when things don't have RSS, then they just don't exist for me on the internet. One of the nice things about Newsbuter is that, let's look at my Calbuter. This is a shortcut I have that runs Newsbuter, but then what it does is Newsbuter allows you to have, you set a couple of environment variables, and then you can have different installations of Newsbuter. And so I can have one for when I'm supposed to be looking for work, and one for when I'm supposed to be updating WhatCamp, and they can have separate things. It works pretty well. Newsbuter works pretty well. It gets kind of slow if you have a lot of cache, like if you're trying to remember all your articles, but for the most part it's fine. So if I go Calbuter, then it's going to open up all of the calendars, or all of the RSS feeds that I use for WhatCamp. Maybe I'll look for JobButer, and that'll do the one for jobs. So here's Calbuter, and then it's got, you know, I can look, oh look, upcoming meetings at KWLUG. It shows me the things that I've seen and the things that I've not, right? So I can look here, and then if I say, oh no, I want to see it in a real web browser, which is going to be W3M, which I've set, but you could also set this to Iceweasel or whatever, and you can open it up in O, and then you can see it on the web page. And oh, if that's not good enough, then you're in W3M, so then you can press M, and then you can see it in your real browser, right? So this is pretty good. Lots of things that you can do here, and so here's the ones that I have for jobs. You know, you can refresh it, and then it'll refresh all your things, and then you can look for new jobs. You can tell I haven't been looking for jobs for a while, and then it just shows those things, and you can open them up. Right? So it's pretty easy, but it's pretty useful, I find. It's definitely one of the programs that I depend upon a fair amount. Anything else I want to say about Newsbuter? Nope, not really. Okay. Anything else that I want to say about this? Oh, two other things. So I said I was trying to be cool and not use Google, but it turns out for WhatCamp I need to use Google. So for Google Calendars, Cranky actually pointed me to this. I use gcal-cli, which is a command line interface to Google Calendar. So I have to open it up by going into a Python install, and then I can go like gcal-cli, agenda -- calendar WhatCamp, and then it can show me all of the things that are coming up on WhatCamp, right? So it's going to show me all of these things. And so I can actually also use this with some shell scripts to add things to the WhatCamp calendar. So if you wonder how things get on the WhatCamp calendar, it's because I'm using this program and a bunch of shell scripts. So that's a pretty good one. Oh, passwords, which is not really for internets, but often when you're using internets you need passwords. What I use is Yapet, which I think I also got off of the KWLUG list. So all it is, it's nothing special. You can't like synchronize your passwords unless you move this file around, which sometimes I do. It asks you for a master password. There we go, and I trimmed down my thing to only things that I think don't exist anymore. Here's grandsocial.ca, which I'm pretty sure does not exist anymore because somebody is videotaping this, so you can't see my password. But basically what you can do is you can add a password, you can say your username, you can look at the password if you want, so here's my password, and then you can just copy and paste it. And I mean, there's supposed to be auto-typing and stuff like that. I mistrust everything on the internet, so I just copy and paste, and then hackers can just look at my memory, I guess. to actually see all my passwords. It works well enough. Again, it's nice because it's just there and it's in the terminal window, so I can copy and paste it and put them into things, right? And it's not synchronized on the internet, which is an amazing thing to do for passwords and is totally safe.
Mail. Mail.
Mail? Oh, well, mail, okay, there's a bunch of things that you can use for mail. I just use Mutt. It's configurable. You can, again, have different profiles pretty easily. So, I used to use Pine, and which became Alpine, and then sort of disappeared. And so then I basically set it so that my Mutt uses all of my Pine bindings because muscle memory. So, you know, let's look at my UW mail.
Well, you gotta work it with Connect, okay.
That didn't work. Great. Fantastic. Let's look at my other mail. Oh, let's try one more.
Muscle memory.
Yeah, totally. Right. Okay. Fine. Here. So one of the things I hate about Mutt is that it's actually hard to use it securely. Either you're typing in your password all the time or you're putting it in some file. There's some ways to like use GPG or whatever so that it's not in plain text in your file. I need to learn how to use those things. So I don't use those things. That's one of the things I don't like. The other thing I don't like is, so I use Yahoo as my main mail and it's hard for me to see my spam. The good things are that you can use IMAP, you can use POP, you can grab your mail down. For my Yahoo, I don't trust Yahoo with all my mail, so I just pull it all down to my machine, and that's a nice thing to do. One of the nice things about this is, of course, if you now reply, well, you can use your favorite text editor. That's actually a nice thing in W3M as well. Let me just go back to W3M for just a minute. If I go to Contact, no, or open it up, say go to Contact. One of the things I really like about W3M is the way it handles forms. So if I have just a single thing, it'll just allow me to put it in a line. If I have a text area, it opens up a browser, it opens up a text editor. So then I never have to learn another text editor in my life. And it's the same thing with sort of Mutt. All right. Mostly Mutt's okay. Sometimes you will look in and your emails will be all garbled, and then you have to like save it to a file and open it, so that kind of sucks. Forwarding attachments is a big pain because when you forward, then by default it doesn't want to actually forward the attachments, so then you have to go into your MudRC and twiddle it, and I'm sure that you can spend years of your life just twiddling your settings, but again, I'm mostly interested in just doing it well enough. And there's tons of clients out there, mail clients, and they're mostly good enough. This is what I use, and I'm sorry to admit that I've followed
Hey,
this little.
there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with this because your entire workspace could be stored in a Git repo.
My entire workspace could be stored in a Git repo. Yeah, that is probably a thing I should do so that I can easily deploy someplace else. Right?
Make it a
Or you
file.
can cross borders way easier.
Just make sure to exclude the string passwords.
Yeah, just, and all of the hard-coded passwords that I have in my MudRCs, yeah, that would also be good to exclude. So that's internets. Other questions or discussion about internets? Okay. How about multimedia? So you can't do all of this in a PuTTY window, but there's some of it that I actually use and that I like. So I thought I would show you some of this. So one of the things that we can start out is like audio mixing. I use ALSA mixer. I don't even know what pulse audio is. Brent has told me 4 times and I don't even know, but you know, if I want to see my volumes and stuff, then it's pretty terrible because I usually use a back background, but oh well. But it allows me to do things like I can mute and unmute my speakers, which is going to be helpful for the next part of the demo, and it shows me all of my little bars and I can make them go up and down, and that's great. So that's helpful because then I don't have to remember to open up another little terminal. Let's say I want to look at some media, so here's some media. Let's say I want to listen to music, which is often a thing that I want to do. So you can use VLC, and I totally use VLC, but VLC has 2 magical interfaces. And the first magical interface I use is intf-rc. And what that does is that just gives me a command line. So let's say like to the Easton Alice's star. There we go. Oops, probably should have done star.mp3. And now it's playing. Can't you hear it playing? No, you can't hear it playing. But you can do things like, oh, it's starting. Okay, shows me this. My status is. I don't actually care too much, but it, I can go to the next and previous. But you don't even believe that this works. So then let's, bring it up. There we go. Go to the next one. Go to the previous one. So if I'm just listening to music and I want to listen to it on loop, this is great. No sort of interface. It's very simple. The one place where, and I can pause it so we can shut it up. The one place where this text-based interface kind of fails me is if I have to seek, right? If I'm trying to go forward or going back in something. So if I'm listening to a long podcast or something like that, and I want to go back a little bit, this interface I don't know how to do into it. You can seek to an absolute position in the file, but you can't say, like, go back 15 seconds or something. So that kind of sucks. But mostly I'm using this interface. There's another interface that I found, which is called intf-ncurses. And that brings it up in the thing, so I can say, play the next thing, play the next thing, and I can go forward or backwards, and that's pretty good. And you can go quieter or louder, right? So this is pretty good. I find that I use both of these fairly extensive. I use the intf-rc one fairly extensively. This one I'll use once in a while. And they both work very well because there's a bunch of sort of command line players that you've got, and none of them seems to work as well as VLC. So just use VLC, right?
Don't go anywhere but VLC.
Yeah, don't go anywhere but VLC. You can also, like, even though this is text-based, you can play videos with this. Do I have a video to play? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, right. So I have VLC, intf-ncurses, I3. So George took this beautiful video, and then it'll play that, and then it'll open it up. But oh no, I don't want to see. I don't want to see all of the intros. So then I can just forward past all of the intros so that we can actually get to the real discussion. Right? So now we can have an infinite cat sort of thing when this video goes in.
So how do you resize that so that you can watch the video instead of the playlist?
Oh, how do you resize this so that you can watch the video instead of the playlist? Okay. So one way that you can do it is you can make your window smaller in Spectrum. So that should be like this. The way that I usually do it is I just change this to full screen. Right? I use the different tiling mechanisms to change this to full screen.
Makes sense.
Right? So that's how I play my music and watch my videos. So music and videos, VLC intf-rc and VLC intf-ncurses. I'm kind of out of time, so I'll just show you one other thing, and that's like, how do you get videos? Because it turns out that this stupid thing is way too slow to play YouTube in the browser. So what do I do? Well, get videos and such. I use YouTube-DL, which is a Python-y script, and then you can use it and you can download a bunch of things. There's a couple of caveats with this. I install the dependencies with apt, but not the script itself. So the script I install directly, I don't try and install it even though it's packaged for Debian, because the script has to update. It's kind of a moving target. So you have to update the script all the time, and I found I was not able to update the script if it was installed by apt. So I would just go install all the dependencies, then install the script directly from the website, and then you can use -u to update the script in place. The other thing is that there are flags for smaller videos. So I have a little terminal shortcut for video. So all this does is this calls YouTube download with a little flag that says don't give me anything bigger than 360 pixels in height, and that way it's going to be small enough or small enough that I can actually play it in a reasonable time using VLC. So that's very helpful to me. I also have another one that will, call this and then transcode the audio to make an MP3 file if I want to listen to something as a podcast. So those are two good things that YouTube DL gives. Anything else? Oh, and the other thing, it works on more than YouTube. So you can throw this at like Twitter or like Twitch or anything and it will get the multimedia from there. There's a few sites that it won't work on, but there's a lot of support in this script. So if you're getting things to download and play on your VLC or you want to put on your little MP3 player, then that's another thing, then that's a good thing to use. Maybe I'll show you two things. MP3 info, I use a thing called ID3. And for images, I use a thing called SXIB. And I'll just show you those two and then I'll stop. So it's helpful sometimes for me to see the metadata on something that's got an MP3. So I can just go ID3 cryptogram and then it'll show me sort of the description or at least the album title. I thought I had another one. ID3 256. And then that will show me sort of like the title and then sometimes it gives me a description there. So that can be helpful when I'm trying to move things to my audio player. And then SIB, so there's a ton of command line sort of image displays and stuff like that. I tried a bunch of them. I ended up using this one. It's fine. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. So if you press enter, you can get a bunch of thumbnails, and then you can choose the thing that you want to do, and then you can, if you've got something that's really big, then it's easy to scroll in and scroll out. It's nothing special. It's just something where I found that the keyboard shortcuts are fairly easy to use, so it wasn't getting in my way, and it would allow me to play like an animated GIF for one round and then stop, and that's more or less ideal.
It's a really good map for helping you figure out how to not give Nestle money.
Yeah, this is a great map for like, here's all of the brands that are owned by everything, and you can see that there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 companies or something like that. Yeah, so there's 9 companies that make all of our food. Okay, so that's about all the time that I have. I can take questions, or if you have other special requests, I can take special requests for maybe 5 minutes and then go. Or now.
For YouTube download, when you specify the format, you do a request to them and they can, if they have a big file, they can format it small for you, or?
Oh, are you asking about the YouTube downloader?
Yeah.
Yeah, so why does asking for nothing bigger than 360 pixels ever work? Is that your question?
Yeah.
The answer is it doesn't always. It'll work if the company has a smaller file for you. And it turns out that YouTube in particular keeps a bunch of different file sizes. Something like Twitch, for example, does not. It'll only do 1024 by 768, so I basically never download Twitch videos as if I should be on Twitch ever anyways, right? So if they have a small enough format for like a phone or something, then they will download that. But often when I try to surf something in like Firefox, then it wants to give me the biggest size for some stupid reason, and then there's no way that my poor fan just goes.
So KWLUG videos, they have in different format sizes?
Yes, all of the KWLUG videos, whenever you upload something to YouTube, then it transcodes it to a bunch of different sizes. And then I just grab the size whenever I want to watch one of your videos. Other questions? So, who here learned one new thing? Anybody? A few people? Okay, great. So it wasn't a complete waste of time. So thank you. I have a bunch of other utilities that I use, but
Can you just name a few?
well, what do you want to know? So I take notes using something called HNB. I use PDF to text to sometimes turn PDF to text, but that doesn't work very well. I use Pandoc a lot to turn one file to another. I use BC as a calculator. I use MC whenever, on those rare occasions when I actually want a file manager that will actually allow me to select things graphically, then I use MC, so there's a bunch of them out there.
So basically, we really just want a list of your workflow.
You just want a list, so
Yeah.
maybe what I'll do is I'll just throw a few things. And then there's a bunch of things that I don't have, right? Like I don't have a Slack client, I don't know how to read Twitter well, I don't have a great way of doing podcasts, although Newsboat can supposedly do podcasts, but I just use Gpodder. You know, there's other things I really don't care about. I don't care, I never want to do drawing in a terminal window, right? So, you know, Inkscape is fine, right? But then there's other things where it does really hurt me and where I feel, and so basically I'll wait until things get painful enough and then I'll try and make it work.
Another request, speaking of Inkscape, what about, has anybody here used Krita and would be willing?
Has anybody here used Krita?
Better than Inkscape, better than Photoshop.
So Jason says it's better than Inkscape and better than Photoshop.
It'd be wonderful to hear a good talk on
Very
that.
open circle.
Yeah, question.
There's another one called Photopedia. It's actually based entirely, it's a web application, and you can install it locally. There's a JavaScript file, I actually saw it on Reddit a couple days ago, where you can actually containerize it onto your system. It runs completely locally. It runs in your browser, it uses a browser engine to work. It's
What's that really evil one that everyone uses?
So it's called Photo
PEA.
Ember
PEA?
or something?
Photo. Okay. Yeah, that would be another.
It, like, just to clarify, like, it opens up all kinds of file sizes or file types, PDFs, everything, and it doesn't upload anything anywhere. It all runs locally on your system, which is, in my opinion, huge. But
So you can have a nice web-based interface all on your system.
yeah, it looks fully legit.
Yeah. Other comments or questions or things that you're looking for? Yeah.
Have you found anything for audio editing from the command?
Audio editing from the command line?
Yeah.
No, I have not found anything for audio editing from the command line. That sounds awful. Like, I use Audacity as a graphical one. I can see some, like, I mean, you can use AVCon and things like that, right, or FFmpeg for audio
Cutting
editing.
and pasting might be just great with the arrow keys and tag and move on.
Yeah, no, I don't know, like, I don't know of anything with an end curses. I don't know.
How about video editing?
For video editing from the command line, similarly, I don't know.
I
Andrew?
think, if I remember, that Raul did a presentation like 5 or more years ago, and he had some text-based, or some command line-based video, I think it was video editing.
Yeah,
It's in the one website somewhere.
yeah. I mean, the only sense in which I do audio editing or anything like that is I transcode things. So if somebody gives me an awful MP4 file or M4A or whatever it's called, and I turn it into an MP3 because I paid patents or something, then I just use that AVCon or FFmpeg, and I never remember. So I wrote another little shell script to do
As
that.
long as you're using the layman coder instead of the FHG.
Yeah. Other things? Okay, I went a little bit over time. Apologies for that.
No. You're fine.
I guess that's it. And so now we can all not. I guess we can all not go across the street to Hacker Nest because it moved to Waterloo.
Yeah.
But
Coming and they ran away.
Andrew might take you to a restaurant if you are well behaved.